I'm Kim Edelston with FamilyBusiness.org, and I am with Spencer Burke, who teaches family business management at the Olin School of Business, Washington University in St. Louis. His research focuses on the best practices leading to the long-term sustainability of family and employee-owned businesses. In addition, Spencer is a principal at the St. Louis Trust Company, a multi-family office where he leads the firm's family business advisory practice. Thank you for being with me today.
It's a delight. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
To begin, what does a family office offer wealthy families? So what are the benefits of having a family office?
A family office can be anything you want to make it. The fundamental benefits of family office would include saving money. The idea that if we combine our assets together, work together, that somehow we can benefit from size. And that would, in theory, drive down our costs, or at least enable us to have access to things we otherwise wouldn't have access to. We can talk about that later. A second benefit is customization. We have our own office, so we can do what we want. We're not style boxed and do an investment strategy, whatever. We can do what we want. The third one I think is enormous, and that would be confidentiality. And that's probably one of the biggest drivers is family business owners tend to be wary of outsiders knowing about their business for all kinds of reasons. And, because it's about family. And so they love the confidentiality part of it. Family members can have comfort that the people in the office are actually looking out for them. They can have all kinds of tasks and functions. The question is, has the family decided on what it is they want to achieve? What is the purpose of the office? It can be managing the so-called entity management of complicated business trusts that have been set up for tax planning purposes over generations. It can be for investment of jointly owned family assets. It can be for the management of individual assets of individual family members. And it could be for helping the family with issues such as family governance, family meetings, family harmony.
So in your experience, what are some of the key problems that family offices face?
Well, the biggest one is lack of clarity on the purpose of the office. I think it all starts with that. And of course, over time, and with very successful family businesses, the family office can be a business. And so it needs everything that a family business has. And that would include governance, a clear understanding of what the purpose is, and then execution of the details as to purpose. I mean, if you're going to be an investment thing, what kind of investment, what kind of investment work you can do? Are you staffed the right way? And finally, the question is, once you have the purpose and you've done the technical staffing, how do you measure the success of this thing over time? While family offices have been around for a long time, in the United States, it was Rockefeller and then the Phipps family and things like that. And there are other Glenmead, there are other ones like that came from family fortunes and then morphed into something else. The fact is that there's been just a tsunami of formation of family offices. Europe is sort of on a per capita basis way ahead of the United States. But the United States, it's with all the wealth creation in the last 30 years, there any number of, in every city, there are dozens of family offices where, 20 years ago, there'd be one or two. So I think the success of this effort is to be seen. If you're thinking of like a business, the family office lasting for 100 years, you have to think in terms of, okay, whom are you serving and whom will you be serving, 3 generations from now, if that's the plan. And that takes a lot of foresight, it takes governance, takes succession planning, takes clarity of purpose for decades. But to be successful, you've got to get family members of the next generation, and usually the one after that are too young, but the next generation, if you want it to be successful, they need to be involved and they need to be party to it, and they have to buy into the purpose too. So we see this regularly where there is a family office. It's highly functional. but it's not serving the interests of the next generation in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, no, I agree. And I know there's some discussion now because, we are going to see a huge change in generational wealth,
Well,
right?
yeah,
Over the
that's
next
going on.
decade
Yeah,
or
right.
two. And there's concern, although it seems not to be talked about enough, about things like succession and the purpose continuing and the next generation supporting things like the philanthropy and the foundation of the founder and so forth.
So you're getting, that's a great topic. So the biggest pothole down the road for wealthy families is the dynasty trust. Under our current tax law, the estate tax is totally voluntary. If you want to pay it, great. But if you don't, let's do this planning, and you can zero out the liability. Rarely do you zero it out, but I mean, get it down to on a percentage basis, way below 40%. So that's a very legalistic exercise. You get generation skipping trust, you have installment sales, you do all this stuff, valuations and all that. Well, once this is put in motion, you have the family wealth, usually the business, which is mostly the wealth. You have that in a trust that lasts in perpetuity, that's never subject to the estate tax. And so, from a tax lawyer's perspective, this is the home run. This gets the Emmy Award for tax planning, but that does not address the things you mentioned, which are purpose, governance, control. How do you govern it when you have jointly owned assets? Is the thing split up at the next generation or the following generation? If so, then how do you got to make sure you control the shares that each of them has. So a family office can really play a major role in sort of driving that car down the perpetuity highway, if you will. And somebody's going to need to, because it's, the documents in place, that's all set up. It's a question of how it's managed and operated. And I think the biggest failing that families have is you've got the money, but if you don't invest in human capital and educate people, and that's fundamental education, that's value education, it's a big mistake, and many don't.
You've kind of hinted, a lot of the people who work for family offices are, accountants, certainly financial advisors and investors, lawyers. So what do family office advisors often get wrong, or they maybe misunderstand about these business owning families?
I think the issue is, do they have the proper training and perspective on the job? And we haven't even gotten to the things that really are most important to families, and that is the whole family psychology, the education, the family meetings. And you're not going to get an investment or a tax guy to run a family meeting. That's not going to happen. They ought to meet the family. They ought to know what the purpose of this thing is. What is the 100-year plan for the family? The family business generally is illiquid. So what you want the family office doing is investing in an uncorrelated way to complement what the business is doing, not to be redundant, because if you have a catastrophe on one side or the other, you want to survive it. And for a family business, by the way, having significant wealth outside of the business is one of the keys to long-term sustainability, because it gives you so much more flexibility. If all your money's in the business and something happens, having money outside the business is incredibly valuable. So I think that's a whole different mindset. Now, a good investment person would obviously be in tune to that, but again, it has to be an overall concept of what the purpose is and how does it fit with the family's perspective over a long period of time. But this concept of the family enterprise has gotten a tremendous amount of currency. And I'm a big believer, and this is the idea that over time, the family business becomes a much bigger opportunity set, call it the family enterprise, which would include the family office, family philanthropy, family investment platform, and the family business if it exists, or if the business has been sold, all those things to replace the business, but run by the family enterprise. And that requires governance at the top level to figure out how you're going to allocate money to each of these different activities and who in the family is going to be involved in those, which for a successful family, this is nirvana, because they've got these people that want to be involved, and they can't all be the CEO of the company, but they could be the head of the foundation. They could be the head of the family office. And if they're not the head, they could be on the board of it. It really speaks to the evolution of family business in the United States. Of course, family businesses started not that long ago here. We're talking, the 1830s, 1840s is, that's a seventh generation business today. In Europe, they've got, I was looking at the one company that acquired a company in St. Louis here. It was created in 1668. Public company in Germany, Merck AG. I mean, it's an incredible company. I mean, it's got like 12 generations with all kinds of family governance, family office. And the truth is, if you're going to have a successful family business, a family office of some form, whether it's your own or outsourced to somebody else, is essential to keep everybody safe, really, and make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing with their money.
All of these things you're mentioning, if you will, you could go to another company. There are lots of investment companies.
Think of it as a continuum. So if you take the services that go into a family office, of course, you could go to XYZ big bank. You would be one of thousands of clients. And when you had a meeting, you'd need the convention center. You end up with a room of 19 people. One's on the trading desk, one's a relationship manager, one's in the trust department, somebody is it's like insane. So moving across that continuum from there, where you can get the services, but it's not customized, all the way over to a single family office where you have the people spending 100% of their time on you. Now, so in our business, we have a one-to-one relationship of staff to families. We have 65 families. We have 65 people there, and we work in teams, but nobody has more than 6 accounts. Many people don't need this. I mean, if you have $200 million, $500 million, $1 billion, that's a business. And it needs everything that a business needs. And so I think this move to family offices makes sense. It's just hard to execute, and it's too early to tell on whether what percentage of the efforts to do this will be successful. I think it's like probably 40 single family offices today. There were 5 12 years ago.
An important point you're mentioning too is with a family office and all these different, arms of it, you're working with the entire family. It's not just one, it's not just the founder. Hopefully, if a family office is run well, it's about the longevity of the family, keeping the family together.
Whether it's some tragedy or whether it's an investment in a new business, if you're actually trying to give financial peace of mind to everybody in the family, which frankly should be a goal, you got to have people that know something about that business. The type of person that's in a family office is more akin to a buy-side person, namely research or investment oriented, not somebody that's a salesperson. That's the last thing you need. A family office should be boring. It should be predictable, and it should be totally transparent.
How can good governance help family businesses to be more effective and ensure this longevity?
I don't know if you've been following the succession planning for LVMH, the Louis Vuitton, the most valuable company in the world currently, or certainly one of them, owned by the Arnault family. They're doing succession planning for the next 100 years. And what they've done is they've created a special entity. They're all going to work together. There's a rotating person in charge. Every 2 years, the rotation changes who's in charge. They cannot sell their shares for 30 years. And every major move requires unanimous consent.
Of the children.
Yeah. The point is, you really cannot control everything. You can try your best. And usually you need an independent entity to help you with that. So in Europe, they've been around a lot longer than we have. They've solved this with businesses by putting the ownership in what's called an industrial foundation. So the industrial foundation is a statutory form of foundation where governance is provided in effect by the state. It's a mechanism that assures longevity, doesn't ensure great government, great results, but at least it's going to be there to keep the plan on track forever. And a lot of these companies have been around for a very long time, and so that's a way to go. But it's like the family office. You set it up today. How's it going to be in 20, 30 years? You have to think about that. And the only way I can see maximizing the likelihood of success or optimizing it is each next generation has to be involved.
So what roles in the governance of a family office, when the family, let's assume, they're well positioned, they're educated, experienced.
Yeah.
What roles do you like to see them have, if you will?
You got to deal with what you have, but in terms of the key skill set, it's dependent on the scope of the family office. If it's to do tax returns, you don't need much, but if you're doing all these other things, you need quite a bit. But I'd say good judgment would be a skill set that'd be high on my list. Also something about asset allocation, understanding. And then I think the ability to assess competence. So we're familiar with a number of family offices that have people that have had fabulous careers in the finance industry, really know what they're doing. And they perform an oversight function for the office. They comprise the board, and their job is to make sure that the office is doing what it's supposed to do. You want independence. You want people that know what their job is, and that is to looking out for the financial welfare long-term of the family over time. That's a very serious obligation.
How can a family determine that they do have good governance in their family office?
Have a third party evaluate it. There are firms that do that. Have an audit of your family office. Have it benchmarked.
So if we really simplify it, if we just looked at, let's say, the family office's board.
Then the question is, do they really know what they're doing? That's why we regularly make presentations to single family offices and the like. After these presentations, they go, well, you sort of open my eyes to what could be going on here, and whether it's worth our money to be running this. Well, they ought to have that conversation every year. Is this worth it? You can't ask the people in the office to give an opinion of whether the office ought to exist anymore. This is the problem. You've created a business generally that the patriarch or the family knows nothing about, and you're asking them to evaluate it and to see it. So what happens? It just keeps going, and the people in the office, like anything else, get older, and then you have to replace them, and you go and you don't know, and you go, well, who should we replace? And then they go out and find somebody that they like. It would take a hell of a lot of work to run one of these over generations well.
No, and that's why I think we see sometimes the different committees, the philanthropy.
So you could have a family foundation with a board. Great.
I think that's where we're seeing a lot of the concern in the generational transfer.
So this is a huge topic that it's called, we call it stranded philanthropy. There is so much money that is so-called stranded.
But I think that's an important area of governance too, because when the founder creates these, a lot of times they have a mission. And then I will tell you, the beneficiaries are very nervous, because if they're benefiting from a foundation, they obviously want it to continue.
The extreme wealth that goes into a well-intentioned charitable program, family patriarch dies off with the rest of the leaders in the family, and then the people running the foundation go off and create a whole different purpose. It's a tragedy. I mean, everybody complains about these mega billionaires like Ray Dalio in Chicago and Bezos. They don't give the money to charity. They give it to a 501c4 or put it in The new form is to put it in an LLC that the government doesn't have any interest in other than they can tax it. So they don't lose control of it. I mean, we're talking tens of billions of dollars. Warren Buffett gives his share. He's going to give all his money away to designated group of private foundations who are required to spend it. And he's pretty assured that over the 20 years it'll take that they will spend it because he knows who's on the board. There's a guy who's thought about how to give away, $60 billion.
What are your top 2 to 3 pieces of advice for ensuring that a family office actually meets the needs of the family now and in the future?
Number one is this purpose idea. Number 2 would be governance. And number 3 would be have this all in writing and agreed to by everybody in the family. And it's not unlike these sort of legally binding documents like a sibling partnership or a cousin collaboration or a family constitution. We work with owners' manifestos. It's written language that articulates why we did this, what we're trying to accomplish, and what we want the rules of the road to be. And you try to get as many people in the family to sign on to this thing. So, and then you have it revisited. So it's updated and there's a reaffirmation. And a beautiful example of this is the voting trust that controls the New York Times. The voting trust expired. I want to say it was 85 or 86, something like that. So it'd been in effect for 50, 60 years. And they were all worried about what was going to happen. Well, the entire family decided to renew the voting trust in perpetuity. I mean, in other words, again, it takes values and it takes consensus on what we're trying to accomplish. The patriarch can't get out of the grave and say, this is what we're going to do. It's not going to work. And then frequently revisit, and I'd say third-party verification, that be confident enough and not afraid to know the truth.
Because most of these family offices are still kind of in their first generation.
Oh, absolutely. Right. No, they haven't had it. They really haven't had a meaningful opportunity to fail big.
Most of them are still kind of overseen. I know the one in my family, it's my dad.
Yeah.
The picture. How do you kind of pass on that torch? Like, who should be that next family? You need a family member, let's be honest, to oversee it.
Good is boring. I mean, it's process driven, it's long-term, transparent, day to day. I mean, it's a business.
It is easier when you have just the patriarch, the mom or dad with his or her children, their children, I should say, right?
Yeah.
It gets much more complicated, as you suggest in the beginning, when there are all these branches.
The number one, we call it a prop. The number one prop we do with families that we deal with is we say, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do? How long do you want this to go on? And then we fabricate a projected family tree 3 to 4 generations beyond where we are today. And we say, okay, this is what you told us you want to do. This is what it's going to look like in 40 years. 2 more generations down, maybe another generation down. How is this going to work? And especially for a family business, when they say, I want my family business to go on forever. When you put that projected family tree in front of them, they go, oh my God, there's no way this can go like that. Because we don't have, what are we going to do with all these people? We can't hire all this. Well, okay, you can't hire them. You better figure out what the rules are on who gets hired and who doesn't. And then you have to figure out how to compensate the people that are in the business versus those that are outside the business. Are they going to be protected by your estate plan? Are you going to treat them differently? What are you going to do? And so I think the projected family tree tells the truth.
So it's the family office is another business. You have these wonderful, attractive jobs there. You really do. Who doesn't want to do investment?
Oh, yeah.
How do you ensure? Because I hate, only making a rule like no family members are.
No, I'm with you.
How do you ensure only really talented, skilled family members who actually want to benefit the family.
Yeah, which is pretty rare. I mean, it's pretty rare.
Exactly.
So the answer to that is they need to have relevant experience. They need to have relevant success, and there has to be predictive evidence, which has to be documented that they have done, can do, and be successful at the task at hand. It's called a meritocracy. And the key thing, just like in family business, these rules have to be in place before there are names associated with them. We can't see your daughter coming up and go, oh my God, Penny's coming along and she's going to want to work at the company. Let's come up with a rule to get rid of Penny. You can't have that. You have to have rules that are not biased to the person, but are biased to the result you want, which is competence and expertise. And by the way, the family has to agree to this. I'm familiar with a major league family business where a fellow in private equity, his fund was sort of over, and he realized he'd been sort of away from his family a long time, and he had this expertise in private equity, and he was going to go back to present to the family council his expertise in running a specialized private equity fund for the benefit of the family. Now that's the way it should be done.
Oh, I like
I don't
that.
know if he got hired, but I mean, it was like, what a great idea. And who wouldn't want your family member doing that if they're competent?
Yeah, why would you want him working for someone else and stuff and not making money for you all?
Yeah, crazy. Let's forget family for a while. Let's talk about what would be the rational thing to do in coming up with a successor for the CEO. Well, the answer would be hire a headhunter if you had the money, and go find the best person in the country for the job. Now, you don't do that because it's a family business and you don't want to do that. But the fact is, there is some truth to the value of that kind of thinking, that you want the best family member at least. And if there's not a best, then you do go outside.
I assume it also helps with making sure the family values are there.
But the idea of psychological assessment, values interviewing, to make sure you're aligned. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, there's nothing worse than get somebody that's trying to make a fast buck in your family office. I mean, that's not the business.
No, and you're right. You hinted at that before too. In a family office, and family businesses are known for this. They tend to hire based on values. And then you do want someone, because of the confidentiality, who's there for the long run.
The last thing you want is turnover. That's why you set up the office, because you're used to going to a big bank and meeting 18 people in a meeting, and then next time you have the meeting on the same topic, there's another 14 new people. I mean, that's like crazy. And they don't know who you are, what your issues are, what your concerns are. They know nothing about that.
All right, last words of wisdom.
Purpose. Have a purpose, write it down, stick to it, and then measure it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Spencer.
Thanks, Jim. Enjoyed talking to you. Let's do it again. That was fun.
We will.
Take care.